Welcome back, everyone, to the Anti-Media Radio. This is the Friday volume, and if you're like me, you've woken up every day for the last year pretty nauseous at realizing that one of two people is going to be president. Hillary Clinton or a rodeo clown. And by rodeo clown, I mean Donald Trump. We're going to get one of the two. We're either going to get a corrupt globalist or a white nationalist. It's up to you, Americans. Go vote. Who's going to rule over us? I'm your host, Jake Anderson, and this is a special broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, because it's the final Friday show before the end of one of the most bizarre elections in history. A humorously, horrifyingly dark chapter in American history. I don't know how many of you saw the hashtag tonight. It was pretty funny. The anti-media guru, Nick Burnaby, who hosts here on Monday and Wednesday, posted it. And it says, Hillary staff emails can't be that bad, and they're Satanist. And they're saying that because the last batch that came out, and this is what DB was just referring to, has an email sent to Podesta from an acclaimed occultist talking about soul cooking. Now, I didn't even know what the hell that was until a couple hours ago, and I'm still not really sure what it is. DB, can you explain what soul cooking is, please, God?
It's just hashtag spirit cooking, and it
Oh, spirit cooking.
Yeah, basically, if you just hashtag that into Facebook or Twitter, especially Twitter, it's going to pop up basically on your feed, everything linked to that. And you're going to see these Podesta files, and they're going to lead you to a whole slew of things. One of the main things you're going to start to notice is celebrity entanglement. You're going to see the same circles of people, the same celebrities. Spirit cooking was for lack of a better word, a occultic type of artistic performance by an artist who's pretty well known among people that are into especially alternative types of art forms. And her name's Marina Abramovic.
Yeah.
And she's done some things I've seen myself. She rose to recent semi-prominence because Lady Gaga is kind of a disciple of hers, and she does a lot of like sensual attunement, not so much in a sexual way, although there is that aspect as well, but a lot of, laying on giant quartz crystals naked in a room that's just completely wood paneled with no windows.
Oh, I can
and that's that. Supposed to, tuning chakras, that kind of stuff. So a lot of this new age, it can be confused with traditional satanic or Luciferian occultic type of things, but in essence, it's whatever this new monstrosity is. It's something beyond those old anti-religions. It's seriously like a cult. And it's pervasive to the point where people in media, people that are giving concerts right now on TV, are all wrapped up in this stuff because it's a big club. They get power out of it. They get kicks out of it. These are predator-type class people. And I think we'll go into that, right?
And there's I saw a picture of this Marina woman, who I'm sure is a lovely woman. I've never met her, but she's hugging Jay-Z. And yeah, this is kind of like a creepier Church of Scientology. But anyway, the email, and this is posted on our site, theantimedia.org. By the way, this article is written by a wonderful writer, Carrie Wedler. And the email, and of course this was released in the latest trove from WikiLeaks, which are exposing emails from Podesta's account. And Podesta is kind of a longtime Clinton confidant and aide. And the email comes from Marina Abramic, okay, and the subject is dinner. And it says, "Dear Tony, I am so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you will be able to let me know if your brother is joining? All my love, Marina." And of course, they're referring to John Podesta. She is a Serbian performance artist, and written on the wall in blood is, "With a sharp knife, cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand. Eat the pain." And traditionally, they sometimes mix together blood, sperm, and breast milk and drink it, but mostly blood, so it's not that gross. I actually don't know the authenticity of that. This is what's circulating on the internet today. Now, why are we echoing this here on the show tonight? Well, why was this sent to Podesta? Why is there a presumption that John Podesta is going to be attending a spirit cooking? And, this is just part one. It gets even weirder. There's a picture sent out today that's from inside Podesta's office, and it's a portrait of a cannibal ritual. DB, did you see this?
I did. I mean, and it's part of this, the eating of the soul, or again, spirit cooking, if you want to call it that. And it's this is where, I don't know if we need to get so down into this rabbit hole, but
yeah, let's hold off. We're gonna get down in that rabbit hole. Me and DB, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't know how into conspiracy theories some of you are, but we're going to climb down into this rabbit hole. We're gonna live there for a while. If we get hungry, we're gonna nibble on the roots, but we're gonna be way down deep in this rabbit hole. And there's no better place you could be than listening to this show right now if you want to hear the craziest conspiracy theories regarding this election. But we have to start from the beginning, okay? This goes back a while. It really it's as if Franz Kafka took acid, this entire election. Franz Kafka took acid. This is how it started. Basically, the first conspiracy theory that came out around this election was that Donald Trump was a plant. He was planted by the Democrats, that he met with Bill Clinton sometime last year, and they figured out this is how they're going to make the Republican Party implode, get in there and use their hate speech against them, blah, blah, blah. I don't like that theory because it presumes that Donald Trump is not a racist misogynist, which he is. Sorry, Trump people, but, he's a white nationalist, sexist, probably rapist, but we got to wait for him to get convicted first, which could happen after he's elected. And speaking of which, either of them, Clinton or Trump, either of them could very likely be facing massive criminal charges, investigations, and charges within their first year in office. Clinton for a variety of charges stemming from pay for play with the State Department and the FBI emails, the FBI investigation, and Trump with, not only Trump University, but, a 13-year-old girl has accused him of rape, and that's a real thing. This is not InfoWars propaganda. There really is a case where a 13-year-old girl is charging that Donald Trump raped her, and it's pretty disturbing. And unfortunately, I wish that were going to be the last reference to pedophilia, sex rink that I was going to be making in this show, but unfortunately, it is not the last, but we're going to get to that. So the conspiracy theories, they started early and they started strong. Now, this is how Hillary Clinton got involved in it. So WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, who's a personal hero of mine, started releasing these troves of emails showing collusion between the DNC and Hillary during the primaries, collusion with the media, showing to an extent a form of rigging the primaries. No, they didn't go in and rip up ballots, but what they did is they colluded, they triangulated, Hillary's campaign triangulated with the DNC and with the media to create a structure that was virtually impossible to defeat, even though the populist sentiment, the insurgent populism, was strong behind Bernie, as it is strong behind Trump, which is why we should have run Bernie and not Clinton against Trump. They created a machine, the Clinton machine, with the media on its side. It was virtually impossible to defeat. And we saw that, and she won. But that's how the conspiracy theories got started. Then we start getting these leaks from WikiLeaks. And now Hillary Clinton's got a conspiracy theory for you. Russia is hacking in to America and trying to disrupt our elections. Russia, remember them from the Cold War that we almost had a nuclear war with? Let's poke them with a stick right now. Let's poke them with a stick right as we're trying to enforce a no-fly zone over Syria. Let's poke them with a stick also and say they're trying to rig our elections. That sounds really smart. That sounds like a really responsible leader. She's so much more responsible than Trump. Let's poke Russia with a stick and slap it across the face. Let's pistol whip Russia. That was her conspiracy theories. Russia is tampering with our elections. Not only was it never proven to any extent, it's actually now mostly disproven. I believe it's now been fully vetted now that these leaks, at least the very last one coming from the FBI, which is that the investigation isn't over, was coming straight from the FBI and possibly NSA. DB, that's where you think the leaks are coming from, correct? Not Russia.
Yeah, I mean, we can go down a different path, but it's insiders, NSA and FBI. Apparently, the CIA is mostly compromised, or enough so that there wasn't people in there that were willing to do anything about it. Maybe, I don't know. Perhaps they have too much invested in the current structure. But there was enough people in the FBI and the NSA that decided they wanted to work with what was given to them by the NYPD, who was able to pick it up off of Weiner's laptop. And when Weiner essentially arranged immunity for himself against the worst of the charges, and they were able to guarantee his safety, moving him God knows where, he started to sing, and they got into everything, and they were able to find these things that they're releasing now. They did not expect to find this stuff. The November surprise tomorrow was generally going to just be a dumping of the rest of the emails. They were going to hope that the people of the U.S. would, I don't know, maybe march in D.C. or start enough social movements that there'd be pressure on people in law enforcement, the good ones, to take action, and that they'd be able to do so. And they just were hoping for that. But now with what could possibly be video stuff coming out, maybe tomorrow or this weekend, definitely, it's not a coincidence that we're talking about potential terror attacks on Monday ahead of an election when they're afraid things are going to drop. They're going to need huge distractions. So to kind of preempt that off, perhaps they're going to drop it tomorrow or Sunday. Probably tomorrow, because Sunday will be football and Americans won't be WikiLeaking. So I expect there to be... You heard it
here first, ladies and gentlemen. A false flag terror attack coming to cover up Monday. To cover up dirty, dirty Clinton stuff. Now, we're not just talking about State Department pay for play. We're not just talking about her hiding some emails. There is some very troubling stuff. And look, this is not just on InfoWars and Breitbart anymore, people. There are stories about child sex slaves coming up. It's being referred to in the mainstream news now. Your beloved MSNBC. DB, take it away. What are some of these charges that are coming from the NYPD?
Well, NYPD is not really doing. It's not so much charges, but they have
not
enough
charges, but the
they have enough. Yeah, the accusations are going to be basically that there's going to be people that are everybody you've thought of and heard of, with their faces clearly visible, with people that are very underage doing things, and they're not. There's just no possible way they're going to be able to get out of it. There's just no way. and they're not going to be able to explain it away. All they're going to be able to do is literally leave the country, and I think those avenues are being cut off. So the only thing left is, 9/11 times whatever Cheney said would happen if anything were to get through the cracks in the security apparatus. Well, all they have to do is just say DHS had a bad day. We got to take away posse comitatus. We're going to do martial law for your safety. And then they're just going to ram through, and Coronator and Obama, maybe he'll stay in as long as he can. And then who knows, maybe they'll throw it to Kane. But what I'm seeing now is that you need to look at who controls Clinton. So who controls the Clinton Foundation? Who's much wealthier than her, and who are her huge backers? Obviously it's Soros, and then there's Buffett, who is on stage with her, and there's people like that. I don't know if Buffett knows what's going on. For all I know, he's just a robber baron industrialist, and he just wants to go with the sure thing, and thinks Trump would cost him a lot of money. But whatever the case may be, there's people pulling her strings, and then there's people pulling those guys' strings. And so what you have to really do to follow this rabbit hole down is who's controlling those people, who's controlling the kingpins. And it always comes back to one particular family. And I don't think that family anymore is trustworthy to the other 12. Jake, have you ever done research into the 13 families?
I have not, but just so you know, I have the eyes
essentially
wide shut
they
polls
were
are playing. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically what they were the original banking families, essentially. A lot of Italian, some German or Germania at that time, also Londinium. So again, these are the kind of the breakup of the Roman Empire, and they created the initial central banking where they realized this perfect scam that could never be called, which was, well, if we tell you we have a ton of gold in our vault and we're going to give you this piece of paper, what are you going to do, break into our bank to make sure? So they just started lending out at a reasonable level for them, which was like, it's still used today, the 10-to-1 rule, which states a bank never has to have any more than 10% of what it's loaning out in actual collateral. So you can see where things like the Big Short happened, because if there's any hiccup in any bubble, it collapses, since none of these banks have any actual money anyway. They're just borrowing it out from the Fed and paying some invisible set of families. So essentially what I think has happened with America is that in a moment of weakness, the richest family of all time has miscalculated, and the other 12 maybe see a way to topple them. And their dog was Hillary, and the other dog is Trump. Now Trump's backed by who? That becomes more of a rabbit hole in itself, because when you find out where he's from Scottish royal blood that claims it's from Jesus Christ, meaning he may be a Templar, you're starting to understand where this is going far beyond a normal political election.
Yeah. I had heard of the families. I just wanted to hear you explain it, but it does seem like we're going beyond a normal election at this point, and I couldn't help but turn on this Eyes Wide Shut music, man. Did you hear it?
It's essentially what it is. It's they,
it's a ceremony.
It's magic with a K.
Kubrick made that scene for a reason. He was saying this was him showing you the kind of stuff that goes on. And in that movie, they cover up a death of a prostitute. You don't think stuff like that goes on at the upper echelons of power? It's that times a million. And what happens when we start seeing the artifice crack and we start seeing through that, and that's what WikiLeaks is letting us do, is start looking at some of this dirty laundry. It's as though you went back hundreds or thousands of years ago and you were taking the king's dirty laundry and posting it on a scroll on all of the doors of the peasants of the village. What do you think that would lead to? What is that heading towards? I mean, it's incomprehensible if this stuff really does come out this weekend. Now, to be fair, I don't think it will. I think they'll find a way to have it covered up. I don't think we're going to find out anything this weekend. And I don't even think they'll need a false flag to do it. There is a massive FBI coup going on right now. And this is, of course, in the corridors of the deep state. And like you said, someone ultimately has control in there. And we don't know who's going to prevail, but that's what's happening. That's what this election has come down to right now. It's not campaigning in swing states. There are battles between the Department of Justice and the FBI, who, according to sources, FBI is Trump land. They are pro-Trump, and they want to bring Hillary down because they've seen some very disturbing things about Hillary. And I don't know what's going to happen, man.
Well, the thing is, like, to the people that pull the strings are the people that pull their strings, meaning Soros's handler or whoever's above him. She's not to be trusted anymore for multiple reasons, and she's a liability. And her whole setup's a liability because they weren't savvy enough to cover their tracks. They didn't care. They were used to doing things before this age. You know, you always relate to Cory Doctorow because he's so true. He's so right. This is that in between where there's not like this apparatus that's impenetrable yet for them to protect their information online, and they're super lazy and super arrogant. And in a lot of ways, a lot of them are setting each other up. So that's the funniest part about it is all this stuff shocking and horrifying, and it's legitimizing a lot of these conspiracy theories. We've grown up knowing that we're more plausible than what we'd heard on CNN or Fox or MSNBC or literally at this point even the Young Turks. I mean, they're bought out. So if you hear it from an outfit with real money behind it and production value, it's most likely co-opted, and right. It's protecting this. It's protecting these rings. That's the only reason this whole apparatus exists, and it goes into levels of there's people in the NYPD that are in this ring. There were 2 cops shot today at a home invasion. Where are the suspects? That was a setup.
First thing I thought when I saw that has something to do with it. No, these are limited hangouts, just like the Panama Papers. You have limited hangouts, controlled opposition, where you think you're getting a disclosure, but it's a false flag disclosure in order to save someone else's ass. And there's layers and layers and layers of that.
And they're terrified of guys like Musk. Even Gates to a degree. Gates has bought into we need less people to save the planet, and he's kind of had his brain washed in that way. But they're terrified of technologists that they can't really get to, that they can't sway from the I guess you can call it 0-point energy future that we know is there. We know Tesla's technology worked in the 80s. So of course it's perfected by now and it's ready to roll. They're going to pull it out as soon as they can depop, or that's their whole plan. And the only reason people listening, whoever's listening, the only reason that the elite base would want to depop, it's nothing to do with a resource base or a declining quality of life even for them or anybody else, because in truth, we have robotics and endless energy right around the corner. So everybody's going to be able to have a really good life. But here's the thing. They don't want to share what's coming at all. That's the whole thing. That's as easy as we can explain it. They're that greedy. They don't see anybody at this point that if you're not at their level of wealth and power and stature, you don't deserve the next step up, which we can talk about with Zoltan and transhumanism.
Absolutely. I was just about...
And that's what it boils down to. They want to create a genocide planet-wide so that they can get it down to the very minimum needed to just fix the machines that will give them the godhood they think they deserve.
We just had another moment of hive mind, man. It's happened a couple times today, but I was literally just about to bring Zoltan up, and we're hedge into the singularity and I was going to refer to a post I saw you make on a Facebook post a couple weeks ago, which is competing for godhood. You said you can't have 7 billion people competing for godhood. And the godhood is when, in a post-singularity world, when we have exponential technological growth and anyone has the ability to basically become a god. How is that going to happen? How are we going to facilitate 7 billion people being a post-human artilect? A human merged with artificial intelligence, and that's coming. And if you don't believe me, I'm sorry, but in your lifetime, you're going to see a transition that you couldn't have possibly imagined, and it's going to be into this age of artificial intelligence and nanotechnology, and you know, go ahead.
They only want like it's just them. It's just them and the bloodlines, the immediate bloodlines and their children, and whoever's alive when this Russian tech they're planning on being able to have come their way within the next 20 years, which is going to be this avatar tech where they think they're going to transfer consciousness into a new clone of them, in their 20s, maybe age 21. And then they'll get another 70 or 80 or 90 years, and they'll do it again. Or maybe by the time this body's dead, they'll have something even better by then. But this is the date is 2035. There was a Russian scientist that said, I'll be able to get your consciousness shifted over to an exact copy of you that's just younger, and it'll just be a new lease on life. And it won't even cost that much, but it will cost, obviously, probably a couple $1 billion to get it off the ground, and billionaires will have the first chance at that. And this is where that immortal banker scenario came from, which is the richest people simply just won't die anymore in the future unless it's violently. And I'm sure they'll even have some backup for that in some way.
Yeah, there's a great science fiction novel called Carbon something. I can't remember, but basically it's rich Methuselahs. They call them meths because it's these Methuselahs that have backups upon backups of themselves. It's basically impossible for them to actually die in any real sense. But I see some.
I'm sure we're there already in practical terms, Jake. I'm sure if Hillary, were to have actually passed away on that 9/11 memorial when she was stumbling out of that and looked basically on death's door, really. If she did pass, they popped another clone in and just take it off from there. I mean, she's starting to actually look a little younger, so I'm thinking maybe they did replace her. That original one possibly expired. I was thinking to myself, what are the Russians actually really good at? And that is subterfuge. Like the KGB's really, really good at their job. And if they really wanted to get to her in a way that was more natural, more pneumonia-like, they could get to her that way, But ultimately, really, it's just sending a message because, like I've heard, they're on their fifth or sixth Putin at this point. So, it doesn't matter either way you go. These are just figureheads. These are actors. And it's just on to the next scene.
Right. So I guess we're there now of discussing the intersection of the deep state and the singularity. And hell, I thought it would take maybe 4 or 5 shows for us to get into that, but I guess we're there. But first, I'm still just kind of fascinated with these latest Podesta leaks, and I couldn't believe that it was showing up on mainstream media. When I wake up, this is the first sites I look at. I look at CNN and Huffington Post, and then I look at InfoWars and Breitbart to try and get a feel for the opposing propaganda sites. And that's all those sites are. It's pure propaganda on both sides. And this time around, CNN and all of the major, Trump is right about that. All of the major media outlets are completely pro-Clinton. And, we are seeing, woman accused of, look at this. This is new. Woman who accused Trump of child rape drops suit. That's brand spanking.
Katie Johnson, or
I don't know her name.
Is that her name? Katie Johnson. Well, she would be the second now that would drop because the other one, Allred, brought to light that she transferred $500K into her bank account. She dropped her lawsuit.
500, that's it? Jesus.
Yeah, that's all she sold out for. She must have been desperate. So I'm not saying that Trump's never done anything bad in his life. I personally don't think that he is the guy that would actually overpower a woman, I believe he would probably buy the finest, prostitutes there are. I don't really believe he's that particular type of a megalomaniac. He's just
Yeah.
he's an egotist.
Well, it
And
takes a certain kind of violence to
yeah,
now we're getting into you know looking at the granularity of a rapist. It's not necessary. He's
no,
a sick bastard any way you look
right,
at it.
right. But there's different kinds, and we've always been ruled by sick bastards.
Yeah.
And there's predictable kinds that actually can be good for the quality of life of America. Now, the problem is when America's quality of life goes up, because our resource base isn't used to manufacture things anymore, all we really export is just war. So if people are like, yeah, Trump's going to bring the jobs back, you're damn right he is. We're going to actually start building our military-industrial complex within our own borders again. That's what he's going to do. So we're going to use that military-industrial complex fully if Trump gets in. Now, whatever that means, whether that means that we become...
It'll be building a Great Wall of China in America.
Yeah.
It's not.
Are we going to become a defensive juggernaut? If that be the case, much like China's doing now, except for what they believe is ancestrally theirs, then we're going to become fortress world soon, and that's going to be an interesting world, I think.
Yeah, after so many years of expansionist empire, it'd be interesting to see the isolationist America, but especially an isolationist island America in which we have the incipient hate speech, xenophobia, and racism that comes with a Trump presidency.
But I think that's the fringe, just like the fringe of the left are guys that are taking $1,500 a day from the DNC to go to Trump rallies and beat the shit out of people walking back to their cars and fucking break windows on cars. I mean, there's a fringe of both sides. So,
my friend, you sound like a Trump supporter, my friend.
I'm just saying it's on both sides. It is on both sides. And the thing is that the DNC, they may pretend with a smile to be for equal rights and for social progress. But think about it. The Dixiecrats, think about what the Democrats really were originally. They do a flip-flop for parties, or the Whigs, they go away. Now the Greens are coming up. They'll try to co-opt the Greens. Hopefully they can stay pure. And they just do this little dance and number back and forth through the eons. Go back and look at two sides to everything, the Egyptians and the Israelites, the original. So... It's always playing two groups against each other with the ulterior motive and the ultimate motive of them just staying in power by any means every time the people wake up, create a massive catastrophe and get out of there.
I still think there's a final surprise left. It feels like something's on the way.
Well, if it comes out that they can bring about an unredacted 28 pages that just officially, like the CIA itself, could link financiers within Saudi Arabia and Israel and the UK and US and Qatar and wherever else, whatever other people were vested in everything that happened after 9/11. For multiple reasons. And it really is just the people at the top of these chains. So it's not like the normal rank and file military definitely not the civilians. Even of Saudi Arabia, the civilians do not deserve to have what's probably on the way for them, because I'm sure they're going to be scapegoated soon. It's just the elite people going to use this as World War II is the same thing. World War I especially was like, wow, the global economy is just, it's done. How do we ramp it up, and let's get a war going. They know no other way. I guess it goes back to Freakonomics, which stated that there's two schools of thought. One creates wealth every single time, and that's why it's the method that is favored by the elite, and that is destruction and rebuilding. So that's why companies like Halliburton are so wonderfully profitable, and it works every time. There's no way that they can ever not make massive profit. So they always love using that method over method two, which is that economic growth would basically be endless and boundless because of human innovation, but that it's not as guaranteed, and you can't control it like you can control war and rebuilding. And it's just that simple. It's the way that we allow our economic system to evolve to the point where we can get back to it. A predator class is rewarded for purging the weaker members of our race through war. It's that kind of simple, and using it under a pretense of limited resource base.
And this is certainly not new. And an interesting detail I saw earlier was that there are people that believe that Trump is against the Illuminati. That the Illuminati, of course, by Illuminati I mean New World Order, people running the deep state, and for better definition, the deep state is the kind of a confluence, synergy of private defense contractors, government, banks, just the merger of private industry with government for the purposes of making money off of war and keeping a funnel of money going on. But they're saying that they're almost equating Trump to a kind of Kennedy-like figure, which is kind of nauseating, frankly, because it sucks that a Kennedy-like figure would be seen in Trump. But what if he is, And that got me looking at that speech, the famous speech by JFK, where he's talking about secret societies, and many people believe this is the speech that got him killed. And so I found a soundbite that I want to play here of this is a speech Kennedy made. I don't know when, but it was pretty close to when he was killed. And just take a listen to this and see if there you don't hear some parallels between what happened on 9/11 and moving forward after that. Here we go.
And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low.
So, a need for security will be used and expanded upon by those who wish to use government resources in a draconian way.
Civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily.
We are opposed around the world by a monolithic conspiracy. Why would the president be saying this in a speech? Let me ask you that. In what context would he be saying something like this, if this were not a dog whistle letting people know that there's something going on?
And ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding.
Unbelievable.
Comes support or opposition.
I wonder why he was killed.
I'm not asking your newspapers.
DB, you've heard that before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Everybody says it was the last time we had a nationalistic president, and that everyone since, I guess maybe with the slight exception of Reagan, who might have just been killed and replaced again with a clone, because after he got shot, he didn't remember anything from his past with his wife. So she said, well, he had onset Alzheimer's. Well, I guess it happened right after he got shot then. But the thing is, these nationalists provide a promise of unlimited wealth and entrance into a club that these politicians can never enter no matter what, because they're not pure-blooded. So if you do the genealogy test for the U.S. presidents, I think 44 of them are all related to one king, but they're like minor, like they're distant cousins to each other. Even like they were saying Bush and Obama were like 14th cousins or something. They're the seen nobility, and then you have the banker class, which they've called the black nobility or whatever you want to call. They were never really the royal blood. They were the original builders of the temples and the engineers and the learned men and the scholars, and they were able to slowly but surely outmaneuver the true, I guess, highborn or royals, and actually kind of own them. So I know, Jake, you've seen pictures of like Lord Rothschild like slapping Prince Philip in the face because he's his little bitch, and that's just the truth of it, because he's higher up on the food chain in the world, because he's worth trillions versus billions, and that's just the simple way it's played. So you have those 13 families with one perched way above the bottom three, and then those bottom three are perched quite high above the 9 below them. So I guess those 9 and 3 are against the 1, or so it seems. At least they're spearheading it here. I think the reason why is because the U.S., I don't think they'll ever really be able to truly mobilize us for war like we did in World War II ever again because of the internet. The internet kind of did something they wanted, and it did something they didn't want. The thing they wanted was to be able to obviously spew out disinfo, and they've done that to a great degree. But by peppering in some half-truths, people have been able to, cooperatively through places like Reddit come up with a consensual truth of things. Right. And so that exposed them.
You're talking about their use of psyops. The internet greatly enhanced the government's use of psyops, which is a standard protocol.
Right, but it opened up the door for the other way. That's the problem. So they thought they would be able to control it through gatekeeping, and you can to a degree, but not against millions of minds when you only have thousands. I don't care how brilliant you are. I don't even care if you have Eagle Eye or the Machine, which is the AI fucking platform of the world, watching everything in real time and coming up with different alternative realities in real time. That stuff, there's way too many variables. What's to say I didn't just get sick tonight and never say this and never give this information out and someone didn't hear it and think about it and go down the rabbit hole? I mean, there's too many variables. That's why it really is just like a matrix. It's like we're just one reality of an infinite amount. So it's just important to think about those things. Like everything is being done according to a script. We should really go into what's happening with this election, because the things that are being exposed are being done purposefully. They're being done through particular people and outlets, and they're going to come to an inevitable conclusion to use what's called a white hat or white knight scenario, where they're going to swoop in with a lot of arrests and a lot of sweeping changes and a lot of amendments to the Constitution, and a lot of new legislation is going to come out of this, and people are not going to be able to sift through it. And a lot of decisions are going to be taken out of human hands as a result, again, because of corruption. So transhumanism is around the corner in the United States. I sometimes think what they let us see, we're like 50 to 100 plus years behind what they can do.
Right, and you're talking about a 9/11 type scenario in which they usher in things like the Patriot Act and whatnot. But imagine a post 9/11 world in which there's already an AI infrastructure, an automated infrastructure. The next 9/11 is going to, 9/11 paved the way for Patriot Act. It paved the way for ubiquitous surveillance. It paved the way for a great many stripped civil liberties. Imagine what the next one's going to do. And I don't. Whoever's elected, I think I don't know if a year is going to pass before some group called ISIS or something, gets another attack on the homeland. I predict it'll happen within a year.
There's also one last scenario I thought of that's just going to be so implausible, but it's if Obama's feeling backed into a corner himself, he would try to suspend the elections through executive orders,
right?
Which would probably be ignored by the military, even though generals would scream at their lieutenants who would scream at the sergeants. The rank and file is going to go, wait, what exactly are you asking us to do and why? You want us to take people's firearms away, stick them into places where we can control them because you don't want elections to happen because why? Because of a website called WikiLeaks came out? That's why? Like the rank and file are not going to happen.
I called it, and I've been talking about it and writing about it. I think the next war on terror is going to be a war against hackers. The first enemy will be WikiLeaks, and they will push together anonymous, independent people like Guccifer, and because they stand to lose too much from these leaks. And what will happen is, this is how it will go down. The government's already on board, of course, for this. It will take all of a sudden a couple of massive corporations report major losses. Then you get a couple of more celebrities, A-list celebrities, with some really nasty sex pics leaked. And then you have a release of, let's say, 100 million social security numbers, and a bunch of working class people get screwed. There, from the top down to the bottom, you have laid a psychological infrastructure for why we cannot tolerate leaks and hacks anymore. And that will be the next war on terror. I'm calling it now. And all of us are surprised Julian Assange is still alive. We know that Clinton had talked about wanting to kill him. As recently as a few years ago, I guess in the middle of a meeting, Hillary Clinton wanted to assassinate Assange with a drone strike, and she said, "Can't we just drone this guy?" She changed the focus of the meeting from the color of her sweater to extrajudicial assassination within 10 seconds, and it's surprising that he's still alive, because here he is. When he was revealing stuff about Republicans and Bush, the Democrats loved it. But now that he's showing basically helping get rid of 2 DNC chairs in as many months, in terms of oh God, what's her name? Who was the DNC chair? Debbie Wasserman.
Yeah.
And then
Wasserman. Yeah.
And then Donna Brazile. And Brazile hasn't been dismissed from
not officially, yeah.
the DNC yet, not officially, but CNN cut ties with her, and it's just coming, and it's just, look at that. In a couple of leaks, they sliced off 2 major little parts of their PR game there. I mean, it's unbelievable what Julian Assange is doing. And, you know, they won't recover from this. These leaks that are coming out right now, they're getting overlooked momentarily. Some of them are, because it's just we're in the heat of an election. But this stuff is going to come back. The amount of info that has been leaked is staggering. And some people, some, arrogant liberals claim, oh, this stuff isn't that big of a deal. I would agree with someone who said that some of these leaks are not enough to expose criminality, but they're enough to show collusion at a very high level. And I don't think the leaks are done yet.
Well, it depends how far they go. If they have this video evidence, not just hearsay, not just code words that are, honestly, if you delve into it, these code words are they're in the criminal underworld of pedophilia. They are not used in anything else. They're not used for drugs or anything else that could have been hidden. No way all these people are having pizza parties, hot dog parties, jumping in hot pools, and all this other crap and slang they're talking about. This is only done in the underworld, the dark web, and that's the only place it exists. I didn't even know about it before I started reading these Podesta emails. So kind of wish I didn't know, but it just confirms what we all thought about these people. And why are these people in power? Because they can be controlled through this way. And they're now going to be swept out from underneath the rug and made an example of and taken down for the next, approved leadership hierarchy or regime or whatever you want to call it, whatever's coming next. So,
and you think that's going to be Trump?
I don't think so. I think it's Kane. I think they're going to ram her in, and then she's going to get indicted, and then they're going to say you're unfit to serve. Now you get Deputy Doofy in charge.
And guess what? Tim Kaine is pro TPP. What a surprise!
Yeah, and he's bilingual, so he's going to stooge a lot of the Latino community that's not privy to the internet, that just watch TV and listen to the radio and read the paper. The older generation Latino will be swayed by him. And they really want, and that's where a lot of the immigration is coming from, for what they need for their lower class, the people that are going to do these jobs that need to make a living wage, but they're never going to pay them that because they're illegal, and they're just going to keep letting them in and taking advantage of people that are just trying to make it, and they're going to make life in Mexico and other places south of the border a living hell with their policy and the war on drugs, and more are going to keep coming up. And I mean, we have a carrying capacity here. We can't go to like 500 million people. So there's going to be a clash here, like that. What's going on in Paris, which more like that is an obvious infiltration. But I mean, things like that are going on are to create the chaos they need to come in with the order of their choosing. The order of microchipping people, because there is a crash in the economy due to hacking by Iran and Russia, and a starting of rationing of even basic items simply to have control over us. There's no need for any of that. I mean, there's no need for GMOs in food. It's just to patent it to make more money, and then to create more opportunity for sickness so that their pharmaceutical giant parents can make more cures for sicknesses they create. So. And they already own the patent for the cures. So it's just that cycle perpetuating forever to keep us in line and keep them on top. We have this one window of opportunity. I mean, in 5 years, they were talking about how there's going to be robotic infantry. I mean, once you get to robotic infantry, then you're at robotic police. So honestly, the NYPD's got a 5-year shelf life right now to stop this with the evidence they have right now, to give humanity, I guess, the last chance we have to evolve spiritually before we evolve technologically, because we've obviously gotten ahead of ourselves, and we need to take a step back maybe and figure out how we're going to use these new wonders in this dimension, before it gets abused and we just destroy everything. I mean, that's just my take on it. This has been a fun first show, Jake.
Yeah, we just had a caller call in. For some reason, it's switching back and forth between them. Having trouble merging calls, but yeah, gonna have to figure that out for next time. Caller, if I think you probably realized that the call was messed up, call back next week or week after. We'll have it figured out. And yeah, man, this was a fun first show. I mean, hey, this is the last Friday. Next time we speak, well, I guess Monday we'll speak, but we're gonna know what happens in this election, man, unless they lawyer up and we go through like a Gore Bush type thing. That could happen.
Yeah,
All right.
maybe, but yeah, let's hope.
Take care, everyone.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo,
You are listening to UCY.tv.